Hey everyone, welcome back to another exciting edition of the Liquid Weekly podcast. I'm your host, Karl Meisterheim. With me as always is Taylor Page. Hello, Taylor.
Hello, Carl.
And I'm wondering, Taylor, have you ever been in a situation where you've had to work and collaborate with other developers on a theme? Maybe you're working as a contractor for a company, have other people that you're doing stuff with. Maybe
I have had that happen several times.
Have you? And maybe
Yeah.
you've had a client that could be difficult to work with in terms of communication. They kind of change their mind. You're not sure what the focus is, and maybe they don't even quite figure it out. How do you handle all that?
No, that's never happened, actually.
Never happened anyway.
That happens all the
Well,
time. Yes.
Well, I've got good news for you.
I need help.
Because today we somehow tricked Kurt Elster of EtherCycle into joining us. And not only is he an expert in all things audio, as we just learned backstage, but he also has handled this many times. So, Kurt Elster, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
You brought your own sound effects.
That's what this show has been missing.
That's right. This is going to be fun. All right, Kurt, I'm sure most people probably know you, but even those that do probably don't know a ton about your background necessarily. Do you mind giving us the hero origin story? How did Kurt and EtherCycle become what we know them to be today?
Well, I've been working in e-commerce my entire adult life. My first e-commerce experience, sale, making money, was doing retail arbitrage with Furbies in high school. Selling, I would go to KB Toys and get whatever
Yeah.
Furbies came in, flip them on eBay. And so that was I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I knew e-commerce was like an understandable, easy path for me. And from there, I tried to build my own e-commerce platform like 10 years later. Did not work out. Turns out that's very difficult. But I had also, in my brilliance, rented office space and had a lease to pay for. And so I started selling websites to local small businesses and sold one for $700. Sweet. Sold one for $7,000. I was like, is this even legal? And then I thought, well, what if I just did the same thing, but for bigger businesses? And so I offered the same identical service to marketing agencies in Chicago. And some of them bought. I couldn't believe it. The same approach. So, okay. But now it was way more money. Only it was also a lot more difficult. And so while we're doing that work, like doing WordPress sites for Hilton hotels, we were also building e-commerce sites and trying different platforms. Because I knew, I'm like, e-commerce is where it's at. Because it's less subjective and more results focused. And we really liked that. And at the time, Shopify was starting to happen. We would vet different platforms, try different platforms. But the one we always were at the end, we go, that was easy. It was Shopify. And it was because of the full experience, the developer experience, just the incredible documentation that stayed up to date. At that time, that was just remarkable in itself to us. And so at some point, it occurred to me, why are we doing anything else? And that was 10 years ago, maybe 11 years ago. We said we should just exclusively do Shopify. And
Now, when you say we, who are you talking about?
I had a partner, Paul Rita, who you know.
You have a partner, Paul Rita.
Have, and I had a partner before then too. Another gentleman who started the business with me, who we had to buy out. Oh, I love partnerships in business. It's not for everybody, but also sometimes it's not going to work out, and that's going to cost somebody some money. That's how it goes. But if it works out, great. If it doesn't, it's like any other relationship. It's a breakup. It's not fun, but you get through it. So changed business partners, focused entirely on, because I'm not, at least then I certainly was not a strong developer. I know enough to be dangerous now. And we just went all in on Shopify, and we needed a way to generate leads. We started the unofficial Shopify podcast, and 2 million downloads later, in the top 0.5% of podcasts, that became an incredible lead gen source for us, and a source of tremendous continuing education for me, and of course, good excuse to buy microphones.
That's right. That's amazing. And the name EtherCycle, I hear that's got an interesting backstory to it as well.
Because we had originally I was trying to build an e-commerce platform, and I even then was smart enough to know, well, you need a focus. You need to address a market, a niche, and in this case, it was bike shops. I had a friend who owned a local bike shop. He said, I hate my website. I hate the service I pay for to run that website. I want something better. And so we initially said, well, we'll build it. And that we needed a name. And even many years ago, it was difficult to get domain names that weren't taken. And so it was a portmanteau of Ethernet and bicycle. And I should have changed the name at some point, but I never did. And now it's too much momentum. I'm not going to bother.
I've always liked the name.
I would say it's a really cool name. It's very iconic. It sets you apart.
I like
it worked.
I like to think, once I started thinking of it as like cyberpunk, like reimagined it as like this retro future idea, and then applied similar branding to everything we did, then it worked, and I loved it again.
I love hearing the origin story, because I think a lot of folks can look at a company like yours and be like, wow, they just, overnight they went from, we're going to do Shopify to, being as successful as you are. But it sounds like there were years of grinding and uncertainty and will this work, will this not work? And even some of the chutzpah going after some of those big clients and just putting yourself out there. I mean, that's a big part of how you got to where you are today.
Thank you. I think early on, especially today, I think about this. Early on, I would take big risks and big swings, and ultimately things that scared the hell out of me that I didn't have the confidence to do or shouldn't have and did anyway. A lot of things that really genuinely pushed me out of my comfort zone and made me uncomfortable. Today, I know too much. Like, I know how hard things can be. I know the amount of effort that went into it. I'm also very successful, and so it's like, it changes. When you have nothing to lose, it is much easier to take those big swings and risks. When you have more to lose and you know too much, suddenly that could put you at a disadvantage for at least those big entrepreneurial opportunities. And honestly, that frustrates me a little bit at times.
Gonna get back out there and risk it all?
Well, that's the thing. No, I have 3 kids.
That's the thing.
They're going to be... One of them is going to be in college soon. He's starting to drive, and essentially I have to put food on the table for 5 people. And when I started, I was single and lived in an apartment with 3 roommates. It was just it was a different thing. Like, I have to eat ramen every day this week. That was my reality. But that simpler lifestyle with far fewer dependencies and just the overconfidence of youth made it much easier to be like, yeah, I'm just going to go start a business and go for it. Like, man, I didn't necessarily know what I was doing. I do, now I do feel like I know, but the other way makes it, you overthink things.
Yeah.
And, from the outside looking in too, as I've gotten to know you over the years, we touched base long time ago in a mastermind for freelancers and stuff like that. But it feels like very much too, you and Paul have a certain synergy that I think just works really well in terms of your skill sets and how you guys manage to leverage those together to find success. So I think that's a big part of it too. Yeah. Yeah,
you don't necessarily, when you're looking for a business partnership, you don't want necessarily another you. You want someone who has complementary skills, or whether that is actual, technical skills or soft skills, personality-wise. He has tremendous development skills, but also more empathetic than me, helpful. I just grew up an only child. Oftentimes I'm like, I just need someone to explain to me what the appropriate human reactions that are happening here are. Just help me. Just someone who just explain it to Commander Data over here. That would be very helpful. My emotion chip has not been enabled yet. And that's how I feel. And so, especially in client services, right, there is so much human emotion wrapped up in that when you're dealing with an entrepreneur who built a business, whose identity is wrapped up in that business. And now they're like, hey, you're going to work on what is essentially the face of that business. Like, you could see where it becomes emotionally charged for the client. And so it's easy. Emotions can run hot. It's easy to get frustrated. And, for me, it's helpful to have someone else to talk through that stuff with.
We love you, Paul, if you're listening.
I don't
You and
think
your
he is.
16 bags of Utz chips. It's a whole thing. Anyway.
I was gonna say I don't know the story about the
Plus, an
the
inside
Utz
joke
chips.
that Karl just threw in a podcast.
That's
That was
interesting.
going really
All
well.
I've got the hookup for Utz chips potentially. So if that's a thing, let me know. So my older brother lives in. Well, my older brother lives in Pennsylvania, and
Oh, man.
so his brother-in-law, they do a lot of photography for Utz, and so they randomly just get like boxes of product that to like take photos of, but then they just keep the stuff, and so they're trying to give all this stuff away to people. So
talk about synergy. Yes, please. All right, we've nailed it, Kurt. We can wrap this one up. Taylor, you had some really interesting questions around working with clients, and obviously, Kurt, you've got a lot of experience working with clients. I wonder maybe if we want to dive into that.
I was enjoying the whole like partnership stuff, so maybe we'll have Kurt pop on and talk about that too. So, but we'll pivot a little bit to the collaborating thing, because I think that is definitely a big piece for a lot of us. So, like me personally, so I'm a freelancer. I work by myself, and so I don't always have that instance where I get to work with teams regularly, like other developers, other technical people. A lot of times I'm interacting with people who aren't very technical. And those sorts of things. But a lot of times I'm stepping into like some Plus agency has like done a custom theme, right? And now, the agency or the merchant is working with me as a freelancer to come in and just do little things. Because, agencies, they're often we're focused on, we want bigger picture. We want these full builds or like, these longer term engagements. We're not really doing these other pieces here. And so collaborating with other themes, within themes with other developers, either after the fact or during on some of these builds, there's a lot of like trying not to step on people's toes, trying to communicate properly here. So I'm not sure. I don't know where do we start? Like when you're working with other developers, surely we've got some kind of like good guiding, kind of signposts here that we can kind of use to stay on track with not messing things up when you have a bunch of people touching a theme. So I don't know if you want to like riff on that for a little bit.
Well, sure. So as we've scaled, this has become a larger issue for us. And early on, we worked as 3 people in an office. So we were in physical proximity to each other. You know what? That made things significantly easier. I love remote work. I'm not criticizing remote work, but certainly there's some advantages to being in person. And when you could just turn to the person next to you and go, hey, are you in this file? What? Hey, are you working on this same thing as me? There's an advantage to that, as opposed to like you're interrupting them, but versus the online version of that is you're gonna DM them in Slack. And so I think no matter what, communication, just open channels of communication are critical. Now, how you scale that communication is the thing that makes it difficult. And then what tools you layer on top of it to avoid issues or enhance things. But if you're not starting at that communication point, it's not going to work out well. Like, I think for me, everything starts with, do I understand what is expected here? Can I then communicate that in a handoff brief? And that's really, like, that was one of the first things that really helped with, developer synchronization, communication, is just using project handoff briefs. That's like, all right, here is a list of everything I think one person needs to know. And then I can hand that to my project manager and say, give this to the most appropriate person. Or I can hand this to the developer who needs to do it. Or I can give it to myself for when I have completely forgotten about this in a week, right? It is helpful to put everything into writing that you are expected to do.
So how do you structure these briefs? Is this kind of like an outline with like deliverables and timelines, or what is, when we talk about a brief, like what does that look like?
I want one page that gets someone up to speed who, let's say, is a Shopify developer, but does not know what they're walking into. And so, who's the client? Who do I contact? When is this due? How do I get access to it? What assets do I need? What is the client's goal? What is expected of me? What are the deliverables? When complete, what do I do? When I have questions, what do I do? And that I just have as an outline. And then you could take that and give the information to ChatGPT and say, this is your format, output this, and then of course review it. And it's very helpful to be able to produce those handoff documents. And then from there, okay, you're still not done. Everyone, I think, in development lives and dies by lists, right? So whatever tool you need where you could check off lists, your task list, great. If you could communicate in it with comments, even better. We've used several. Currently, we're using ClickUp, which ClickUp I like a lot. Whatever tool works best for you is the way to go. But once you have that handoff document, okay, now that could become a task list. in a collaborative to-do list like ClickUp.
Yeah, I'm personally more of a Kanban board guy. Like I detest lists. I don't know why.
Oh, really?
I like physically moving cards into different stages. You could probably do that with
But really,
lists.
you're just doing. It's
the same thing.
It's an enhanced list format. I agree. It's different. Like it's a different format, but similar idea.
Yeah, I'm yeah.
I don't
and
check
that's the bad
things
thing
off.
is
I move them from one board to another. Oh my god.
that's
Taylor,
the problem is
how? Teach me.
I have a list within like the card, right? Because like the card's the overall deliverable. Then there's like lists within it, and so like it's
nested lists.
It's a problem. It's a problem. So it's lists of lists. Yes, exactly. So I say I don't like lists, but then I use them just excessively. So I like Basecamp. I thought ClickUp was super noisy. But I bet did it take like a little while for you to get used to it?
Yes,
there's a lot.
That's
you can do
the learning curve with ClickUp is wild. Once we got it wrangled and comfortable with it, now I'm like, oh, it's so quick, and it's like this fabulous productivity tool because it has all. It's really built for like a power user.
Yeah,
is how I view it. It's like this is lists for power users. That's the stuff I love. Like that's how I see myself, power user. And so I took right to it. My only criticism of it is it won't do, or at least I've not figured out a way to get it to do proper nested email threads like dedicated support ticketing software might do. And maybe I'm just asking too much.
I find the UX to be a little off-putting at times. It feels like it gets in its own way a lot, but I respect there's a lot to it that I don't touch. So.
Yeah, well, no, there's stuff in it that I'm just like, there be dragons. I'm just not going to mess with that.
So that's okay. So like there's some project management tool. There's a project brief that everybody gets.
We need Slack.
Slack. Yes,
for communication.
Why not Discord? Because if somebody's going to ask. So, and I mean, I have my reasons or whatever because Discord sucks. But why Slack? What makes Slack a better tool in this approach for you, in your opinion, at least?
I have no idea. I mean, I use Discord as well, but like Discord is the thing that I use for more like open source public projects. You know, like there's this Linux homebrew project to run an arcade machine that I'm a part of. Okay, well Discord feels right for that. You know, sign me up for Discord. And my kids are always like, "Oh, I'm in this Discord for the beta of this game, like for gaming and that stuff." Discord feels right. So, but for a professional environment, Discord? What? I don't think so. Really, I think Slack came before Discord. And we were already using it as the answer.
Yeah. Well, and it makes it easy to connect to different. I don't know. There's lots of internal teams that I've found that you can use that connect feature. Where I've done that with a lot of folks. That's super handy just to be able to drop into someone else's Slack, and then you don't have to worry about walling people off in certain channels or whatever. It's just like, oh, this is just your channel to communicate, and y'all can keep your Slack over here. We can keep ours over here. Everybody's happy. So
that's another thing we do if it's a larger or more complex project with a more sophisticated client.
Do you bring clients into Slack regularly, or have you found that to be a problem?
I've not found it to be a problem, but I think you have to do it with the right person, right? It's not always going to work right. You could be setting yourself up for like someone who decides to just use it to be very needy. That's not particularly been an issue, but I think that's always the fear. Yeah. But when you're dealing with like, okay, this is a bigger team, a more sophisticated organization, more technically competent, but I think when it's a bigger team that already uses Slack, then you're fine because like they've already figured out the etiquette, whether they thought about it or not, to using Slack. And it's not like some new strange tool to them. Versus if you're trying to onboard a new client and then also onboard them to using Slack for the first time, and then you're like, why is this not going well? Okay, too many variables. There's too much entropy in the system at that point.
Yeah. Right. Well, and do you try to use, I don't know, the thing that I try to typically do is have kind of like a, when it comes to communicating about deliverables, okay? So like timelines, things that I need to get done, things in the future, whatever kind of type thing. I usually try to pick like one kind of like source of truth, or one kind of like main place to do that, one base camp, if you will. So for you, do you bring clients into ClickUp to be able to kind of like ping back and forth on deliverables kind of type thing? Or do you try to stick to comms in Slack or in email and stuff like that?
We try to stick for comms to Slack or email. I have brought clients into ClickUp it's not created issues. I don't think it helped us in any way. Really, we have one recurring client that I keep in ClickUp, and it's solely so that I could use the @mention, and just @mention our main contact at this client. The other problem with ClickUp, I'm pretty sure you're going to pay like per license per seat when you add people, so it's not going to scale. It's not practical for that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I liked a lot about Basecamp is you can just invite clients and contractors for free. You're only paying for staff per seat, which is pretty cool. Which was nice for someone in my position where it's just, just me. Whatever. My wife works with me in the business now too and stuff and helps out with a lot. So I'm just paying for 2 seats and everything else is just other folks. Okay. So you mainly use project management. You're working within teams internally and those sorts of things with other developers. Is there anything you do where I think most of your work, you're usually coming in, you're building like a new theme, right? Like you're doing a whole new theme or you're migrating, you're building something up from scratch. Do you come into instances where you come into a pre-built, maybe a custom theme or something like that? Y'all are doing some work. Is there something you do to capture any existing documentation and migrate it to your own processes so that way teams are aware of what's happening? Or what's your experience with what that looks like if there's usually just no documentation at all, which is what I run into a lot?
Never once have I been provided documentation that was useful or up to date.
Yeah.
Even one time out of 100, they have documentation.
Right.
When we got the documentation, it was incomplete. It was out of date before the site had even launched, and then never updated again. Right. I don't even ask. I don't bother. There is no point.
Yep.
Like, why frustrate everybody?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm at the point where I haven't had that to be my thing where I'm like, I just don't even, I still always ask, but like that, my experience is similar. So that's really interesting. Maybe I can stop asking now.
Yeah. It's not even like there are the best practices to development that we should all agree to and engage in. And then there's the reality. Right. It just isn't happening. Because the moment you have one, you can't trust the help doc. Like, we documented all this stuff. It's not going to help you. Now, leaving comments in code to help people out, even just breadcrumbs that are like, this is where this starts. This is what this does. That's tremendously helpful. And bless every person who leaves a comment behind for the next person. All day, comment that code. But like trying to document it separately for a future person, it's very impractical because they're siloed from each other. The Google Doc that this is almost definitely in is so disconnected from the actual theme code.
Right.
And not saving me any time to have to like see if that's in there, then see if it's correct.
Right. So you're leaning heavily on like, Lord willing, there is some kind of documentation within the code here somewhere to give us some hints. Otherwise, we are just walking into this kind of fresh, at least when you're working on an existing build or something like that. So definitely something I've personally worked on. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
For that reason, when we accept work, I mean, flat out, we will refuse any work that's like, oh, this is a theme forest theme. Your theme better have come from the Shopify theme store. Maybe we accept a custom theme from another agency, but your agency's like number one on Clutch and cost you $200,000. I'll give you plenty of horror stories about those too. What you paid for the code, I have not found to be indicative of the quality necessarily, and for that reason, it's like, all right, it's got to be Shopify theme store because now I know at least at the start this was vetted in a sane method.
Right. Yeah, or you pop in and you take a look and it's it's a custom theme and they're like it's a custom theme, but you pop in and you're like, oh, this is all like this is all Dawn like component convention structure here, so like I know at least this is built on top of like something that was halfway decent. So, but that's they're like, oh no, we got a completely custom theme. It's like, no, this is a customized version of Impulse, or this is a customized version of Enterprise or something.
Like it's a fully custom theme and it's optimized for performance. It's static. It's just static HTML in a template, and you paid like 20x what that should have cost. Right. That's what happened.
Like, why can't I edit any of this? And you're like, well.
Yep. No, that I've seen many times. Oh, it's a static.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And when you open it in the theme editor, it breaks.
Right. So this is a lot of consistencies in the experience here. So this is good at least. And I think that's something like I was starting to say. Like I definitely have tried to start getting better, even as a solo dev, trying to think about either future me or another future dev that's going to be in here and leveraging code comments before. So I've opened this up before talking to other devs internally, but as far as like documentation goes, I try to provide documentation, not just within the code, but for the merchant at handoff, right? Anything that's like quote unquote custom, right? So they want some custom sections. It doesn't behave. We can't rely on the theme docs to help them out, whatever. So I'll usually provide some documentation, screen recording or something like that. Most of the devs that I talk to have taught, that are further along, a lot of them have said like, we've just stopped providing this anyways, because what typically happens is that like clients ask for it and then they never use it. They still reach out by email and they're like, hey, how do I do X, Y, and Z? And then you just send them the link to like the video where you walk through this or whatever. And they're like, okay, but how do I do this? And so like, if you're, whether or not like you're actually, not spending your time well there, or whatever, like, do y'all have documentation best practices for clients at handoff, too? Like I would see that as part of the collaboration. And if so, who's responsible for that when you're doing that? Is that something like the developer who's building, does that? Like, cause I know you work within teams, you construct a team, like often, right? Kind of type thing when you're building.
Yeah.
And so
depending on what we're building, I have to assemble a crew, Ocean's 11 style.
Yeah.
But for documentation, nothing has worked as well as screencasts. And we try to make them task-based. So a client wants, like, why does a client want to know? Well, because they have a goal to achieve, or they have to teach someone on their team to do that same task to achieve that goal. And so how your code works, it really less for a small business, for an e-com owner, is less important than how do I get the thing done using the tools you built me. And so I like to create a screencast that's like, hey, this is how you do this. And once you have that screencast, you walk through it. You could take that transcript, give it to ChatGPT and say, can you turn this into step-by-step instructions? And it'll happily do it. And so
that's awesome.
There is not a ton of additional effort to providing good help doc style documentation. That's what I want. I want a Google Doc that has a screencast and step-by-step instructions in it. And usually what I'll do once I have those things put together, I email it to the client, I give it a descriptive subject, and then when they just goldfish brain and forget in 6 months, as they do, and I'll have forgotten too, I could search in my email, oh, there it is, find it, copy paste, like, hey, I found the documentation for you, here you go. And it took me 1 minute and they're thrilled to death. Oh yeah, thanks for putting that together.
Nice. Yeah, that's really handy as far as just being able to like provide. So that's more so what you've leaned on. So that's awesome to use AI. Like I've done that with screen recordings for a long time, but yeah, the text, some people just want some kind of like text step-by-step directions too. So, and that's super time consuming, right? Like, I'm being paid the dev. I'm not being paid to like, like type up this stuff. Like y'all probably don't want to pay me like the hourly that I'm using up for this. So that's a really good idea to use AI for that or whatever. I had not considered that. I know I'm scratching the surface on that. So those are best practices for handing off for merchants. How about for other devs on the team? Like, what are you doing as far as like keeping everybody on point? Maybe if we can shift back probably to like the collaboration piece. I know we took a little bit of a sidetrack there for documentation selfishly because I'm working on some stuff here trying to like improve that process a little bit. But as far as collaborating with other teams, so you've assembled this Ocean's 11 style team here, and
who's Brad Pitt?
Y'all are cranking out work.
Obviously, I am, Carl.
Okay. I was thinking if you or Paul, but
so if you've got this team, how are you keeping everybody on point? Everyone's got their project briefs. I'm assuming that it's like I'm responsible for this, I'm responsible for this, but like how do you keep people from stepping on each other's toes when they're working on a theme?
Having clearly defined roles, it is still going to happen from time to time. Like there's going to be overlap, and that's kind of hoping that we could figure that out together, what a better solution might be. But and obviously like using versioning and Git repos would be beneficial, but it's not always practical.
Sure.
I have found what's helped is clearly defined roles. And so having tasks in ClickUp and then assigning them to people, and oftentimes they're going to be based on skill set. So it's like, okay, or area of the theme. So it's like, hey, you're going to be working on these templates, these like front facing templates. So that's largely That's going to be touching everything except JavaScript. And okay, we've got these special functionality requirements. All right, well, that stuff is probably going to live in JavaScript largely, and then a few snippet files. Okay, so those two people can probably work concurrently and not create issues with each other. And then obviously like design phase is in there as well, and that exists separately of it.
So do you use like GitHub integration and stuff within Shopify to help people kind of build out
I mean, I'm not
features or
opposed
anything
to
like
it.
that? Right.
But
It's not something you found to be very helpful with when you're doing that. Like it's more so about like giving like really, really good project briefs, assigning roles like within your project management software. So ClickUp in this instance and those sorts of things, helping everybody kind of understand like, hey, this is your lane, stay in your lane. And then from there, that has proven to be more effective than necessarily, because like some agencies that I've worked with, it's like, okay, like every new feature gets a new branch, and like you're working on this branch, and then maybe a lead dev is the one who's responsible for like merging everything, right? Like and dealing with like, conflicts and stuff like that. But from what it sounds like, from what you found to be more successful, at least within Shopify development, it's more about like really, really good information on the front end, making sure everyone kind of has that. And then like you're kind of like maybe checking in throughout the project to make sure everything is happening there.
And we do.
That's been more effective.
The weekly meetings and then open communication in Slack. And the project brief straight up invites it. It's like questions, ask in Slack, email the client, whatever's the appropriate, depending on the context, scenario. But like spell that out. So because a lot of that is permission giving. Like, hey, this is what you do when this happens, when you have a question, when you have an issue. And that's really just being open to that has helped a lot. I'm not opposed to GitHub. We do end up using ThemeKit and VS Code often, but that's not going to help us with versioning or repos in any way. It's nice to be able to like pull backups down quickly, but and that theme editor can be the web-based theme editor. Occasionally, it likes to throw you a curveball, save what you think it did. I swear to God.
Yeah, I do not like the web-based editor. Maybe it's just because I like my own stuff.
Of course.
More so than that or whatever. It's a very rare instance that I'm using the web-based editor. So, and so at least your method, I mean, it kind of leans a little bit more towards, so I'll use GitHub integration, those sorts of things, just so it can keep track of stuff or whatever personally on my end of things. But what I've seen with a lot of agencies is, they adopt like basically their own stack for like tooling and stuff like that or whatever, in which case that's why they really have to start using like branches and different things like that or whatever. So is that something y'all typically tend to avoid, is like this internal tooling, build processes or whatever? I was talking with another dev not too long ago, and I won't mention their name just because they're like, oh man, I'm kind of like almost ashamed to admit this, but like I don't have a lot of tooling for when I'm building for clients or whatever. And personally, I don't either. Like I don't have like a whole build process. I try to stay as native as possible because to me,
I agree.
I don't know. I think that's weird when you incorporate something that essentially encourages buy-in to like my services. Like I want the client to like have whatever they need to do everything they need without me as much as possible. Cause I also don't want to have to, hey, we want to do this, and this now. And like, we can't do it within the theme without me spinning up a build process to push that up for them or whatever. And it's just like, no, I'm not going to do that. That seems weird. So it sounds like you do the same.
I have learned from 10 years of working on Shopify that Shopify is going to give you all the tools, and they're going to tell you how they think you should probably go about things. And the closer you can stick to their recommended approach, the easier your life is going to be in it. Maybe now, for sure, in the future. What I've learned is like we could do a lot of really creative workarounds and make Shopify do some of the goofiest, crazy stuff it was never meant to do, and it'll work until in 6 months where they're like, hey, we introduced this feature and it's going to break that goofy thing you were doing that you totally shouldn't have been doing as a workaround, but here you go. So the more you could stay on just using the tools as described in their documents, everything's going to be easier. Like it's just, there is no advantage to fighting it. Just these are the tools, they're constantly evolving, make best use of them. But trying to get creative with it, not a great idea.
Now, we've talked a lot about collaborating with other developers. But one of the things I think is also an issue is when you have the dreaded Hydra client, the multi-headed monster, where it's not really clear who is in charge on the other end and
Ooh.
how to interface with them. Have you encountered that much in your work with other organizations, and how have you guys combated that in the past?
So that one's not been as big a problem as one would think. I mean, we're working with a lot of small businesses. Generally, it's, hey, what is highest paid person's opinion is the one that it's going to be. In family businesses is where I've seen some of this, people disagreeing on what's going on. But even then, there tends to be a hierarchy where, like, this is the person. The trying to funnel them through some kind of process. They're like, hey, you have to submit everything through a support ticketing form. That can help formalize it. Trying to limit to a single client point of communication. Like, oftentimes I'll just tell people, like, hey, we need a single point of communication. Who is it? And then that forces them into a decision. And okay, maybe they're fighting on the back end, fine, but on your end, you're only dealing with one person. There's a single point of communication. That makes life considerably easier.
Now, have you had this happen? Carl's kind of asking for me because I've been bemoaning an issue that I've been working with throughout where I had the promised land of the single point of communication with a relatively technical person who's really great about filtering out these requests.
Okay.
And this person has not left the company, but they're some personal aspects of their life changed to where, like, basically they moved to a different country. They're not available in the regular time zones, and so because of this, new people, like multiple people, not just one, multiple people have been added to our communications channels, and so there's a lot more noise, when it comes to trying to figure out what to do here, and they've been great to work with. It's a client that I really enjoy working with. They give me a lot of fun projects. They're fun. But obviously, there's a lot of trying to figure out what's the actual important thing to be working on here. And so we're now working on creating. What's that?
Have you considered just asking? You ask, what is my order of operations? What is my priority? What is the one thing I should be working on? Every developer I've ever worked with at some point asked me, in what order should I do these things? Or a variation of that question.
Yeah. And that's kind of where we're at as far as, so we've moved now to their own, project management system. So as a freelancer, I typically tend to just try to, like, work into other people's processes instead of saying, these are my processes, like, y'all have to conform to this. So I'm like more like an extension of the team, right? And so there's a little bit of issues with that, obviously, when that comes into play. But so, and before we didn't have a formal, like, ticket process or anything. So that's something new now that I'm trying to add in, which has just been different. Before it was just like, hey, in Slack, we need this. And I'm like, cool. And then I move it to my own Basecamp, right? And then I know, like, where the order of priorities is. But now that there's more people asking for stuff, and even sometimes it's just, and they're great as far as sometimes they ask for stuff to get built. It gets built, and then they're like, we don't want it anyways. We're scrapping it. And I still get paid for it. So, like, they're like, oh, I'm sorry we didn't use this. And I'm like, well, I got paid, so I'm not mad. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
I appreciate that they acknowledge that, though. It's
yes. Well, that's why they're a great client
it's rough
to work with,
when you
right?
build something really cool and then it never sees the light of day.
Right. Yeah. And that's why they're a great client. They're really understanding about that stuff. And so that's why I'm trying to do my best to help prioritize. So as far as, like, structures go with where you've had a good process, but then, like, that's now in shambles. And so now we're building something new. It sounds like maybe that's kind of what you'd suggest is kind of making sure people help prioritize. Number one, when requests come in, people help prioritize. And then two, maybe having a process for those requests to come in where everybody comes in through the same place, at least for requests. So that being some kind of a ticketing kind of type process.
Yes. To enforce it, you have to, like, number one, they don't know that they're creating a problem for you because you haven't told them. And so if you're like, hey, I've got, I want to do our best work together. I think we can improve operational efficiency here. And where we can help do that is if we can have all our work requests come through here, and I'll help you with that. And so when someone sends one that's not through there, you just reply gently, like, oh, I could do that if you could just put it into this Here's the link.
Yeah.
You could just
Open
add
up
that
the
in there.
ticket.
Thank you. And then once you have that list, then you could make it a project management, a status item where you go, hey, here's your daily update. This is what's in my queue. Could you prioritize that? What are the top 3 things? What's the number 1 thing we should be working on? And then, or like, oh, I've got these 10 things to do, organize them, and then I'll provide you due dates. So now you've incentivized it, and you're helping them understand like the process, because they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. They got dropped in. They're just trying to get things done, and they were told like, well, you just tell Taylor and he takes care of it. It's like magic. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. So that's the big takeaway here is, 1, communicate that there's a problem. And then 2, go back to like, creating some kind of a structure here for kind of like getting it back to, there's still now one place where all this communication for deliverables comes from. It's just not a person anymore. It's just like, it would be like the ticketing process.
Yeah. Now the thing is, like, you always want to avoid, no one wants to feel attacked, and you cannot present yourself as like in some way aggrieved, because all arguments are some variation of who is the more aggrieved party. Right. And so like, that's why I want to lead with, hey, here is a thing that achieves our larger goal, greater operational efficiency, faster outcomes on getting these tasks done. Like we're enabling each other in this greater goal of, whatever this online store is. And so I think
this is,
lead
good that
with
this is all recorded. I've got this all now where I can just copy and paste this.
Ask ChatGPT. Say you're expert negotiator. Your role is expert negotiator. Your task is to get me out of this mess. And your format is polite Slack DM. RTF, role task format. That's the easiest way to talk to ChatGPT.
I love it. I love that.
Well, speaking of messes, one of the things I've observed, Kurt, from watching you over the years that I don't think often occurs to people in Taylor and I's position, where we're kind of on our own working with clients, is that sometimes you have to fire a client.
Oh!
And that can be the best thing. So I've seen you do it. I've seen how healthy it can be, even though it's so painful. Can you walk us through a little bit about what criteria you guys sort of use for that, and how it's worked out for you, and how you even approached it?
All right. I read, there's a business consultant who's done tons of books, Alan Weiss, and he had some line in one of his books I read at the start of my career that was like, every year, a healthy business every year should probably fire the bottom 15% of their clients if you're in a service business. And he was a consultant. So it's like, you're going to fire the bottom 15% of your clients to make room for the clients that are more like the ones in the top 10%. All right, that seems healthy and good. And he's like, but you're going to, it is a breakup. You feel bad and weird about it. You were probably grateful when the person arrived and said, hey, we would like to give you money, hire you in an exchange of goods and services. Oh, wonderful. And now, 12 months later, you're like, hey, I don't actually want your money anymore because it isn't worth it. That's why it feels weird. The person's like, look, I'm going to give you cash to do work. And you're like, your cash isn't good enough for me. Okay, it isn't like that, but that's how it feels. Yeah. And so it doesn't have to be weird. If you're just like, and I've seen this where someone is just like, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I have personal issues. Yeah. And I feel attacked, and I'm taking a mental health 6 months. And then they just like block in everything. And you're like, okay, you don't want to do that. You want to approach it and say, hey, we're going to wind this engagement down, whatever it is. And they're always going to, I hate when they ask why. That's rough, because you don't want to be like, well, here's all you don't want to turn into a grief party where like, here's all the ways that I don't like working with you. You're not, it's like, oh, just let them save face, right? Oh, we're going in a different direction. Oh, we don't have the bandwidth, that kind of thing. Just ignore that. But say, all right, we're going to wind this down in 30 days. And here's our plan to do that. And we're going to transition you to someone else. And then you're going to find them someone else. Ideally, unless they were like just nightmarishly awful, which they probably weren't, right? It's just not like a good fit anymore is usually the scenario. Then you should be able to find someone or like several warm referrals that you can introduce them to, or like, hey, here's some marketplaces if it's smaller work. That's how I approach it. And one of the wonderful things about the Shopify partner ecosystem is people tend to help each other out. And so there's one of several Slacks and communities I can go into and say, hey, I've got this client and this project, and this is what they're looking for, and who is interested in that, who would be a good fit, and then I'll cherry pick out of that. Like, okay, I think these 3 feel right, and then make those warm intros. And when you do it that way, things go much easier, things go much better. But you do have to be prepared for, like, you will get the person who just is like immediately offended at the thought of being rejected in any way, and when that happens, you don't feel bad about it either, because you know that you have made the right decision.
Reinforces it. Yep.
So like when you're resisting firing someone, the moment you go, should I fire this client? The answer is yeah, you probably should have done it a week ago. That's why you're asking, right? The fact that this conversation has even come up tells me Taylor's got somebody to fire, right? And it either goes well and they thank you for your professionalism, or it goes badly and you know full well that it was the right thing to do. But to get to that place, you need to be absolutely perfectly professional at all times.
Yeah. See, and the way that I've quote unquote fired or moved on from people typically in the past has been more naturally with like rate increases, right? Like, like every now and again or whatever, you kind of go up and like, hey, this is just how expensive I am now to work with or whatever. And then that just happens naturally, or like the best case scenario, or maybe that's not the best case scenario. Is they agree to it. I've had that happen a couple times where I've pitched a much higher rate, just that this is just what I'm charging now, and then they say yes, and I'm like, okay.
And then how do you feel? Right, you've got mixed feelings about that, don't you?
Conflicted.
Exactly. So again, you know that the right answer was to fire them, but that kind of pricing.
I've had some people. When I was in high school, I worked with a guy mowing lawns, and he told me that he's just this good old Southern boy, right? Or whatever. Real nice dude, but like, it's funny. I'm not going to go into that. But that was something that he said that stuck with me for a long time, was there's just some people's money you don't want, And that's always stuck with me whenever I've like run into these situations, is I hear old Greg talking, he says, there are just some people's money you just don't want, son, And it's like, all right.
Yeah, well, Greg's right.
Greg's right. It's true. Yeah, there's some clients where it's just, it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, you just don't want them. It's just not worth the hassle. So,
yeah, and I think it's a healthy thing. It's just early in your career, you're in that famine cycle, and you're so grateful for the work that later, when you're turning them away and turning it down, it feels so strange and wrong. Yep. But I'll tell you what, on the other side of it, when you have parted ways, I've always had the exact same feeling, relief.
Yep.
Right? Mm-hmm. You always feel relieved. But it's a breakup. Just treat it professionally. That's all you could do.
Solid advice.
So Taylor, I'm afraid it's just not working out between the 2 of us.
This is why you brought Kurt on? Like, okay.
It's not you. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
It's the mouth breathing. It drives me insane.
Understand.
I'm sorry.
All right.
I was only keeping you around because you were editing the videos, and now that you're not editing the videos, it's like I don't need to put up with him. Just kidding. So Kurt, well, that's helpful. Do you have any funny war stories about that you want to share? Like is there one particular egregious client that people would enjoy hearing? Without shaming anyone? That's not the point, but just the shared experience of being a contractor.
I mean, I've had so many strange experiences. I think, though, the strangest isn't like it. I have fired my share of clients, or like have had projects go sideways. I've been doing this since 2009. It happens. It's going to. I think it's a fact of life. But the most upsetting, the worst projects are when the client just ghosts you. There's several where for us it felt like the project was almost done, or the project was like ready to launch, and then it never goes live. You never hear from them again, and you have no idea what happened. And it's like, they have their reasons, and it's probably something personal, probably something horrible. You don't know. It's not your business, but it's just such a strange thing where you're like, what happened? What did we do? Probably not. You probably didn't do anything. It's probably got nothing to do with you. But man, those are the ones that I'm like, they haunt you.
Well, and it's bad, like, too, like when you've gotten paid in a lot of these instances, right? Or whatever, like at least how I structure a lot of my engagements, like I've been paid and I've done everything on my end. But yeah, like if you get to the point where it's just like, we're just waiting for you to hit go, man. Like, you know, or whatever. Like, all my stuff's done, and I've been paid.
And if it was like one time, like whatever, I wouldn't share the story. But after 15 years, it's probably happened like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah.
Where it's like, it's everything has happened as it should, except for go.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like they show up with a different website a month later. I've never, in all of the scenarios, I've never once found out what happened.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Isn't it weird?
Yeah, I've had it happen twice in the past several years that I haven't been doing it for that long, you know, or whatever. But yeah, twice where it's just like everything's done. One time it was didn't basically get the other half of the payment or whatever, so I was like, maybe that's part of it, you know, kind of type thing. But
yeah,
I don't structure my engagements that way anymore. You know, like work's getting done because I've been paid for it, kind of type thing. So that's a different way of going about it. So, but yeah, that's weird. But it's what I'd say we pivoted a little bit to like the client stuff or what have you. But before we move on anywhere else, I did want to ask if there was anything as far as one of the things that I've seen a lot of agencies do. And I think I've seen this just because, you know, I very openly stalk you online, all the places that you are. So that's, you know, and you talk a little bit about this, but kind of like sometimes you favor different themes when y'all are building, you know, and those sorts of things. Is that something that you've chosen to do? I know other agencies do this as well. Like they kind of like pick a lane as far as like, you know, we work with this because like we know it's easy to dev on, or maybe we have a really good relationship with the theme dev, and those sorts of things. Maybe they have a great documentation, whatever it ends up being. But do you typically have that, or is this something that like usually the client picks, or is it more so like we're involved in this engagement and we're responsible for this? So like this is the theme that we're building off of, kind of type thing.
Yeah, I very much theme selection is part of our role in doing the work. Like it makes sense. Yeah. I have worked in a place called the Theme Store for 15 years. Just let me pick the darn theme.
Right,
since for the length of time there has been a theme store. And so what we'll do is if I specify upfront, hey, this is a no-code theme setup, meaning we are not going to do custom templates or extensive customizations, then I will not limit myself. I'll go and pick whatever I think makes sense.
Sure.
From the theme store. Again, it's going to be a paid theme. It's going to be in the theme store. Yep. And I'll give them like, here's 3 options, and I'll let them pick, and then we'll go with that. But that's only if we know that it is a temporary, and this is not uncommon with our private equity clients. You know, they'll be like, hey, we got this idea for a business, and it'll be like this terrible Dawn store that, you know, still makes like $500,000 a month. You're like, how? Right. They're like, just get, we're only willing, and those guys, you know, will buy like 20 small businesses and see which one goes. So they're like, we only want to put $5,000 in it. So you got 20 hours to figure this out. Okay. And so you just pick a theme and do it. But that's a minority of our work, because that's like a service to those PE firms, because they're going to come back and then they're going to buy the full theme setup. They're going to do like, hey, we want the full custom thing now that we understand the business. You know, now that we had the time to figure out what works. Now go build it. You are, at this time, you're probably going to get Focal. That's our go-to, Focal theme. The last several years, we've used that for almost everything. You talked about like the relationship with the developer. I've reached out to them. They seem to have no interest in me at all. It's like, okay, whatever. I'm going to keep plugging your thing because I like it, but you're not helping the situation. Versus, like, there have been other theme developers where we liked the theme in the past, and they're extremely helpful resource-wise. And then and I like... lately, Enterprise by Clean Canvas. That one's been really good. But again, the theme, you know that you've done a lot of customizations in, that it makes life easier. You know, because a lot of themes get similar customizations. Like, hey, we want this sticky thing. You know, we want these linked product options. Oh, well, hey, we built this on this other theme, so we can reference that code, or like we already know that will work. You know, we know that is plausible to do with this exact scenario. And so that adds a lot of confidence and speeds up development. And also you end up making things that break less, right? Because you've done it before. Yep. You know, you don't have to rely on beginner's luck on some of those theme customizations. So I think there's a big advantage in, you know, finding maybe not one theme, but like a theme developer that you trust, because they'll have shared code base, or like a couple themes that you're like, all right, this one's great for big inventories. This one's great for single page. And, you know, this one's great if you're not going to customize it.
Nice.
Well, with that, I think we got to turn our attention now to the next segment of our show, which is Taylor's changelog. I'm trying to think of a funny name for it.
We need to get the soundboard back after having Kurt on here.
On,
we
Kurt,
definitely need the soundboard back.
Okay.
Okay.
That's Dad from the Carousel of Progress at Disney World.
Oh, okay.
This is my wife's office. She has a Disney World podcast. You're getting all Disney sound effects.
That's awesome. How legit is that?
Oh,
I ain't getting all sweaty.
Disney World's very hot. I use that one a lot on her show.
I ain't getting all sweaty.
Oh, Taylor, start talking.
So for the changelog, again, real quick, and I will make it real quick, Karl. So Shopify CLI just got a pretty significant update, no longer requiring the dependency on Ruby. So Karl sheds a tear, but it's supposed to be like making things more consistent across or whatever. Personally, I've been running into a lot of issues. There are a handful of open GitHub issues, and I bemoaned a little bit on Twitter after Ben Sale came out and threw that out there that this was a thing, and so some other devs and I were complaining about it too. So you can run a legacy flag, so that way you still won't get some of these errors, and they're working on it. So by the time this podcast comes out, they'll have it fixed. It's going to be rock solid. But for now, for the record, you can still run that legacy flag. If you run into issues, I'm sure they'll preserve the flag for the future. I also had made note, there's new install parameters firing for events on theme and app listing pages that I thought was kind of interesting. So they've got like a new view item and add to cart. So if you're a theme or app dev, Kurt, I know you guys have got a couple of apps in the shop as well. So some new events are being sent to Google Analytics. So just make sure you check out the changelog for that mess. And post-purchase offers limit was increased. Did not even see that. I didn't even realize there was a limit for post-purchase offers, and check out extensibility and all this fun stuff that we're using now. It was 2. So the new limit is now 3. So now you can have 3.
50% increase.
Yeah, it's kind of a big deal. I know I'm kind of underselling it a little bit here, but it's a thing. So, like I said, I didn't even know there was a limit. So the changelog was more so like, oh, there is a limit. So it moved up from 2 to 3. So if you're building out checkout extensions, or I'm sure y'all get into that a little bit, doing some custom extensions for Plus clients and stuff like that, can now do 3. So that's cool. And finally, product feed webhooks now support per market inventory. Just kind of a note, maybe for, just Shopify is continuing to push further and further into this idea of selling everywhere internationally, supporting markets and things of that nature, what have you. So I think that's something that we've had a lot of people on. They've talked about the importance of paying attention to the types of updates that come across in the changelog. International markets and those sorts of things like that is becoming a constant ping in the changelog. So something definitely for folks to be keeping track of. And that's the changelog.
Thank you, Taylor. We appreciate your research as always. And by research, I mean reading the RSS feed, whatever it is you do. But you do type it up and put it in there.
I can
read.
Thank you. Yep, I read's good.
I read's good.
You talk pretty.
For our last segment, for the third half of the show, the car talk thing, third half of the show.
I loved car talk.
It always made me laugh. For the third half of the show, and guys, looking at the outline, I realized I forgot to do this again, but we're going to combine our pick of the week with a quick, what's your life focus been, work-wise, anything personally you want to share, and kind of wrap us up. So I'll go first just to set the pace. So my life has been spent focusing on my basement foundation still. Those of you that follow the podcast know that for the last 2 years I've been working on keeping the water out. And even after having them come and dig up all the way around it and redo the waterproofing of the foundation, I was still seeing water. And what I realized was that it was from the sprinkler hitting the side of the foundation and weeping into the cement block and then coming down into the house. So I spent last week sealing the outside exposed block part of the foundation with a penetrating water sealer by Deco products, which I highly recommend. It was amazing. And then I also went back and applied their Deco Seal elastomeric membrane to it. 2 coats. Took me 6 hours of painting my foundation. I'm half done. But if I see any water in there after this, I'm gonna be so upset. Now, mind you, we're in the middle of an extreme drought. So,
I was going to say, this is the best time for at least the not show up, but also best time for things to dry out well enough. So maybe that'll be good for it.
So this is like best case scenario. So if I see any water now, I'm going to be really pissed. But when it rains, I'll especially be. So pray for me for that. And then in terms of actual like Shopify work, I'm working on updating a private app for someone, which is always fun because it gives me a chance to go in and mess around with some work I used to do. So I'm going to be upgrading Rails and digging some more into Hotwire to get some of their front end stuff, because that's the way God intended JavaScript to be rendered in the browser, was server side, using something like Rails. So, Kurt, what's going on with you? Oh, sorry, my pick of the week. I almost forgot. See, I messed it all up. I've been playing with a site called Udio.com, UDIO, to generate AI music. So I'm trying to come up with some cool, awesome music for the intro to the podcast, which hopefully you'll have heard by now when this actually goes live. Yep. All right. Kurt, you want to go next?
Sure. So in my professional life, I got to put together a video course for Smart Marketer. It's called Product Detail Page Blueprint. That's like merchant focused. Like, hey, here's best practice, here's layout. So I like creating those educational resources a lot. They're very, very satisfying. And then, always fun when you get the email from somebody who's like, oh, this helped me out so much. I got it at just the right time. So that's what I'm hoping for. We'll see after I make it how it's perceived. And then, of course, just leading up to Black Friday. It's busy season if you're a Shopify agency or freelancer. And so just a lot of work at the moment. And so I'm looking forward to relaxing on the weekend. Little PlayStation 5 is my thing. But I'm a do-it-yourselfer. Like, I can't relax and enjoy things until I've additionally been productive all week and then personally productive. And so I've been doing a lot of 3D printing. And do you guys own 3D printers?
I do not. I saw. Are you talking about the Iron Man mask?
Yes.
That thing was dope. Like, that is super cool. We'll make sure to link it up in the show notes because it looks amazing.
I'm going to print. So I just got into printing helmets and masks, and I did a Deadpool that's really good. That's in the background of when I'm in my actual office. This is my wife's office. That's in the background. That inspired me. I printed a Spider-Man that's like the Spider-Man mask from the PS5 game, and my teenager lost his mind. I gave that to him. And then for my Halloween costume, I 3D printed a life-size photorealistic face hugger from Aliens. And I learned to airbrush to make this project work. This thing I'm the one who printed it, and it makes me uncomfortable. My wife was like, you got to get that out of the house. I had to take it to my office just because she was like, that, like, it unsettled everybody.
That's awesome. So you're going
to
wear
post
that
on Twitter
and
and Instagram. It's really something.
You're going to walk around with that on your face for Halloween? Won't that be super uncomfortable?
Well, so it sits forward of your face, like it leans forward, so it's not against your face, and then there's eye holes hidden between the first and second pairs of legs. This thing's creepy as hell.
That's awesome.
Did you design it?
So you could buy 3D prints.
Right.
I paid, I think, $15 for it from Do3D. Printed it on a crappy printer, and then just an old Ender 3 we have. And you could get those for like $120 on Facebook Marketplace all day. And then taught myself to airbrush, which I'd never done, and discovered I could do. It's like, after some practice, I'm like, hey, I'm actually pretty good at this. I had no idea. So it's kind of fun. But so all right, my pick of the week, I would love to not be fighting with my 3D printer anymore. I would love to get a Bamboo Labs P1S. So Bamboo Labs 3D printers, they're like, supposedly these are the no hassle printers. So if you're thinking about it or you're looking to upgrade, that's my pick.
Or if they hear the podcast and they want to send Kurt one for free, there you go.
So there's sites on Shopify. I was going to buy one, put it in my cart, like the printer that I wanted, and it ended up being, it was like $900 or like $930 with shipping. And so I'm like, so I tried a bunch of coupon codes, none work. Of course.
Just waiting to get that abandoned cart sequence. Is that what
I tried that too.
Yeah.
I left it in my cart, waited several days. Then you go back in and you're like, welcome 20, come back 10. You just start guessing at coupon codes, no luck. So I emailed them. I said, hey, I got this. Here's my cart. It's over $900. It's shipping in the U.S. I was just curious, shouldn't there be free shipping? Is the shipping the $35 shipping? That's a mistake, right? And they're like, oh no, sorry, no mistake. I tried everything using my e-commerce bag of tricks and no luck. So instead, I'm holding out until Black Friday.
There you go. There you go. It's going to happen. Or they see the podcast and they send it to you. They're like, oh man, Kurt, we're so sorry.
Yeah.
We had no idea.
I sincerely doubt
pretty
it.
low.
With our massive reach here, it's going to happen.
That's right.
Just wait. So cool. I guess it's my turn.
It is your turn.
I'll try to wrap it up.
Declare it to be your turn. Yeah.
Sweet. I'm jealous of the 3D printer. I've wanted one for a while. I'm gonna need to like try to just pick one up on Facebook Marketplace or something just to like play around with one. So every time I talk about getting one, my wife's like, "Why?" And we're just like, "Why not?" Like, there's so many cool things you can do with it.
Then she'll be like, "Definitely
I'm not
do
gonna show her
not,
the face hugger. No,
do not buy this."
I cannot do that. No, stay away. I gotta hide something from her. Yeah, personally, moving on. So I'm playing hooky a little bit earlier today. Our little local county fair is in town, and so I'm gonna cut out after our recording here. I don't know, you've probably heard it all throughout this podcast. Hopefully, audio editing pulls out the background noise. My kids running around and crashing into things all throughout the time we've been recording here. So they got school off today. They get school off every year, so that way kids can go to the fair. There are a lot of kids here that they've got a lot of kids that like show animals and stuff in the fair and different things or whatever, and so they just have it to where it's just like a teacher service day or something, but they always put it on fair week, so that way they get the day off, kind of type thing. I do live in a relatively rural area, so
you got like 4-H club and stuff.
You bet we do. And so there's that. In addition to that, kids are just, playing in sports. I'm the co-captain for my son's flag football team. He's 5, and we're getting destroyed because the way the divisions are set up, it's like it's 5-year-olds up through like first grade. And so you've got like these kids who just turned 5 playing these kids that are like upper end of first grade is like 7 years old, kind of.
They're getting demolished.
And
I've seen 5-year-olds attempt organized sports. They're just kind of what. There's like 3 of them are just standing around staring at the ceiling.
Yeah,
and then the rest are just kind of going at random.
Yeah, it's bad. So like we can pass in the league, and we've got some kids that can throw, but like nobody can catch, And so like it doesn't even matter that they can throw. So like everything's handoffs, and it's just it's a mess. But so they're having fun, kind of. We're just getting destroyed on the scores and those sorts of things. So not a big deal. Work wise, just still plugging away, trying to keep my head above water. I said no to a lot of stuff this month to catch up with like the main clients that I work with before like Black Friday heats up even more, kind of type thing. So just trying to get ahead of their stuff that's in the backlog, so that way we can hit the Black Friday stuff hard and heavy, kind of type thing. So been doing a little bit of that. Found another use case, my favorite, new best friend mutation observer with JavaScript or whatever. That was something that Lee Barnes introduced me to years ago or whatever. We had him on the podcast. He works at Shopify now. But just fun little stuff that you can do with cart updates and things like that for this little like gift with purchase kind of type thing we're doing. A lot of fun, just like technical stuff. One of those things. I think JavaScript is just always, every time I learn something with JavaScript, I become a little bit better of a developer, kind of type thing. So, and then other than that, little things. So Shop Dev Alliance, we're launching partner profiles for folks on there. So that was a big deal. We were trying to do that for BFCM too, as well as a partnership with another merchant community that's on Slack. So that's all my stuff. And then my pick of the week is going to be Tally. So if y'all have dealt with forms and those sorts of things, JotForm was kind of like a popular one for a while. I've always hated working with it. Thought it was very overpriced for what it was. Like, did not work well for like custom style sheets and stuff the way that I wanted it to work. Tally has been my answer for that, and it's super simple to use. I use it for like everything now. So it's just a little easy site for creating forms. It's got like an annual license that's like relatively easy to handle, and like no limit on teams right now. So you can bring in tons of people for forms. Very, very cool. Very, very handy. Check out Tally.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Taylor. Thank you, Kurt. This is a lot of fun. Not just saying that because I have to. It really was a lot of fun. And we learned a lot. We cried. We laughed. It was good. So I guess we'll catch you guys on the next one. And thank you all for listening in and sticking with us. We'll see you next time on Liquid Weekly.
Yes.